Final seconds of the game, a chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.
Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello, Rank Squad, and welcome to Ranks FC. It's your favourite football podcast, back for another week. And today we're going Continental. We're going to take a look at some of the European giants on the continent and just examine how their pre-season and transfer windows are going. A little bit like what we did for a couple of Premier League teams last week. My name is Jack Collins, and I'll be your host today. And joining me from across the water, Mr. Dean Jones, live from San Diego. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. This is a big episode, I think. We've obviously covered the Premier League in, I think quite good detail recently. And on the Patreon even, a lot of the focus has been around the Premier League. Obviously, we've had to address the Copa and the Euros and the Olympics. And you've even been watching the Olympics this morning before we've recorded this. This evening, I should say, for you. But we haven't really started to get into the details of the European giants. And so when we were debating what we should talk about for this week, I was like, well, what about like a pre-season check-in on Europe's elite clubs? And it seems like a good time. We're a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from the start of the competitive stuff, I guess, because there's obviously like Super Cups and Shields and stuff to be played before the real campaigns begin, and they're a little bit staggered in terms of when the campaigns start. But let's see where everybody's at right now. Let's start to judge people on their summer business.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to do this one by one. We've got 9 teams to get through, so there's a lot of content for this episode. And I want to start us off, not necessarily in alphabetical order, but it would actually work out this way. With Atletico Madrid, we'll start in La Liga. We'll do a couple of La Liga sides. And look, it feels right to start with Atleti because they are right in the heart of the news this week. And after a really slow start to the window where a lot of players left, a lot of experience left, and what's interesting, they got a lot of wages off the books, Atleti. So we saw departures for Memphis Depay, Saul, for Morata, for Stefan Savic, who's been there forever and a day. Soyuncu was on loan last season, Mario Hermoso, Gabriel Paulista, and then potentially exits now for Samuel Omoradion and for Joao Felix, although those two aren't confirmed at the time of recording. And I think there was a little bit of worry around the camp, and from reading various Atleti publications, from reading different things around Spain, the kind of feeling was, okay, there's a lot of, not necessarily deadwood, but a lot of players there who are vastly experienced, but also potentially coming towards the tail end of their careers, who are leaving and moving on to pastures new. And for example, someone like Savic, who has been such a brilliant servant to the club, I think it was clearly not at the level anymore that Atleti needed from him. And so suddenly you're like, okay, well, where's he going to go? He's obviously moved off to Turkey. Incredible move for him. He's going to have a great time out there. But it felt like they were in a space where a lot of these players were leaving and a lot of people were sort of pleased. Pleased might be the wrong word, but this is the right time to part company with a lot of players who've been there a lot. And so it's kind of opened up this, well, the season starts in a couple of weeks. Are the board going to back Diego Simeone? So it all exploded into life. And so the first one through the door was Robin Lenormand, who obviously had an excellent campaign with Spain as they went on to win the Euros, moved from Real Sociedad. It was mooted before the Euros that this deal was going to be done. It has come out as a deal that's done. And then the next one in was Alexander Sorloth, who had a brilliant campaign with Villarreal last year and was right up there in terms of the golden boot race for La Liga, had a really, really incredible second half of the campaign. And so that's a pretty straight replacement there, I think, in Sorloth for Alvaro Morata. A lot of similarities in their game, although Sorloth's been far more clinical of late. But this week, obviously, we've seen a deal being struck between Atleti and Chelsea for Conor Gallagher. That's yet to go through, completely, but looks like he's out there at the moment, having his medical, finalising terms. It's expected now that Conor Gallagher is going to become an Atletico Madrid player. And then this mega deal, Dean, that sort of exploded for Julian Alvarez from Manchester City. Now, there's a lot of money involved in this deal. It's a big fee. But what Atleti are potentially getting here in Julian Alvarez, one of the most versatile, consistent strikers that we've seen in the Premier League over the last few years, who's able to do a number of different things. He's filled in for both Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne over the course of the last 2 years. Very few players, I think, would be able to do that. Now, he's neither of those players, but he's been able to do a job in both of those roles. He's a very, very special player, Julian Alvarez, and someone that I really, really like. And whilst I'm surprised that City are going to allow him to leave, they have said on numerous occasions that they don't want to hold players back. And his family are potentially moving to Madrid no matter what happens because of various staying in the UK rules. This feels like, out of nowhere, Atleti are on the verge of signing, I think, one of the most exciting players in world football.
Wow. That's very a big statement. But you're right in terms of the role that he's filled over the past year, and that's been used to build his confidence, build his ego, build his expectations of himself. I also do think it's a good deal for Man City. I think that they're selling a very good level there.
It's a very good price.
It's a huge price for Alvarez, and it's the price that I was told weeks and weeks ago that he would be talked about going at. So that turned out to be spot on. PSG were in the hunt for this as well, and I think it's a very good move for everybody involved. I think Man City can move on from it. Be interesting to see if and how they decide to replace him. But for Alvarez and for Atleti, I think it's a great signing, and I think it'll also really liven up La Liga. I think La Liga it's got its swaz back. I think it's got a bit of swagger about it now. La Liga, you're starting to get a bit of a cast together that you could stick on a poster and be like, "This is our league. Come and watch it." And that's obviously been lacking in the last few years. But I think if you could put this cast of stars now up there in lights, then we're all going to be wanting to watch this league more. And it's not just because of Real Madrid and Barcelona, it's because of Atleti as well and deals like this one.
Well, I saw them talking about this. This is a deal that normally you'd expect to happen for a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. And instead, it looks like Atleti are going to get it done. In pre-season, they've lined up with the kind of standard Simeone formation, 5 at the back, 3 at the back, however you want to kind of show it. But with those 2 wing backs, with 2 deep midfielders, and then 2 players behind a central striker. Now, Sorloth looks like he's going to be that central striker, I think. And that opens up a space where you have a potential front 3 of Sorloth with Alvarez and Griezmann behind him, which is pretty cool in terms of what's going on. And I think that's a real talent. It leaves some spaces, I've got to say. And actually, the amount of talent in the midfield here now might suggest that he might have to shift things around a little bit now. Marcus Llorente can play obviously a right wing back as well. But Rodrigo de Paul's in there. Conor Gallagher, we assume, is going to be in there. And then there's Vermeeren, who's played a bit further up and didn't necessarily settle that easily in this Atleti side when he moved in January, but has been really, really good in pre-season, taking advantage of the fact that lots of other players have been off on international duty. Barrios, who's having a wonderful time at the Olympics with Spain. Koke, obviously, who's club captain. Serrano's played a little bit in there in pre-season. On the wings, you've got Samuel Lino and Rodrigo Riquelme, who have been kind of stating their claim. Where they fit in, I'm not 100% sure. Riquelme played as a centre forward at one point in pre-season. You'd imagine Lino probably fills in at that left wing back role. Lenormand is a very, very good centre back, and I'm very excited about that. But Kostis has got, the 19-year-old Greek player, has got a lot of minutes and looks very, very assured at centre back as well. So all of this to basically say that I think this transfer window, if all of these deals go through, if Alvarez and Gallagher go through, I've got Atleti pinned at about an 8.5 out of 10 for this transfer window. I think they're one top draw centre back away from this being nigh on perfect. And I really feel that they've dialed into players that are going to love playing for Simeone. Conor Gallagher in a Cholo side feels like the most natural fit in the world. Alvarez's work rate has been one of the things I've always absolutely adored about him. He's going to love buzzing around at the top of Diego Simeone team. It feels like they've really, really done this in a very smart way. And right now you look at it and think, well, Atleti should, if this all goes, as it should do on pitch, if this translates, Atleti should be right back in the conversation next year. And I'm not talking about top four, I'm talking about titles.
Oh, mate, they got two big clubs to compete with on that front who were desperate to prove that not to be the case.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a good window. I think arguably, obviously we'll come on to Real Madrid and Barcelona. I don't think I could sit here and say that either have had as good a window in this in terms of transformative things that have revolutionized the whole club. They talked about revolution at Atleti this summer. I think we're starting to see it. I'm excited, really excited.
Okay, well, maybe I'll use that to go across Madrid, shall I? And talk about Real Madrid, who I'd say even without massive movements have still had an 8 out of 10 window because they've signed Kylian Mbappé as well as Endrick. Mbappé lifts that rating, obviously, because it's the best signing anyone in the world could have made. Endrick is going to be great. I hope he can avoid too much criticism. I think when you see him at the moment, probably still needs to do a bit better at protecting the ball, but it's going to be a steep learning curve for him across the next year. He'll need broad shoulders at times on the pitch and off the pitch. But they're two unbelievable signings for the future. Now, I'd say Real Madrid do need more business. I'm personally concerned, we talked about this on Patreon the other day, that there's a slight absence of a centre-back coming in. I think there's just one depth option short of being convincing, but I'm sure Carlo Ancelotti's thought of this and has answers.
Well, he spoke about it, right? He said that he's excited that Jesus Vallejo's come back. Now, Jesus Vallejo couldn't get into Granada's team the last time that I was watching him play. I'm not 100% sure that's the move I would be making.
No, it doesn't seem that convincing, that one. But beyond that, there's still talk, despite Ancelotti saying their transfer business is done. The Spanish media are still going with the fact that they could try to get Alphonso Davies out of Bayern. So we'll have to wait and see whether that happens. That would, again, lift that transfer rating for this window up. If you're going to evaluate what's gone on in pre-season, there's not too much to look at, to be honest. They've lost 1-0 to Milan. They've lost 2-1 to Barcelona. It's been difficult to really gauge. I mean, the Barcelona match was obviously hampered by the weather as well, so there was a long delay involved. Mbappe, Bellingham, etc. missing. I don't think it's a huge worry, the actual results. Certainly, Madrid have lost by heavier scorelines than this and gone on to win great things in the past. They actually play Chelsea in a few hours' time. I can't talk about that because it hasn't happened yet, but by the time this podcast has gone out, Real Madrid have played Chelsea. So maybe check that one out right now and see how that one went. But the one to really gauge is coming up against Atalanta in the UEFA Super Cup on August the 14th, and then they start their campaign against Mallorca. In terms of what to look out for with Real Madrid, Arda Güler has been really exciting in pre-season. I don't think there's been too much so far to take from it, but I think he's going to do well. I think it's time for his proper emergence. We all know what we're getting from most of the rest of this team. To be honest, most weeks could almost predict 10 of the 11 players. It's pretty well established in terms of the order of this side. But I think that every week there'll be a spot up for grabs. And Arda Güler, I think, has an opportunity to grab it. You look at Mbappé and Bellingham, Vinny, Valverde, Tchouaméni, these people, they'll all be expecting to play more often than not. And Arda's got an opportunity, I think, to go in there and make a splash. But if we're going to get excited about something, then the top line is Mbappé. He's just posted on Instagram that he's landed in Madrid. There's a picture of him on the plane, on a runway, and he's here. We can't ignore this. Can't gloss over this. Madrid have to reach for the sky from here, mate. Obviously, they still had a great season last season without Mbappé, but now it's time to do new things. Madrid have never won a treble. Go for it. I mean, you've got the superstar now. It seems mad that Madrid have never won a treble.
I was just about to say that. It's one of those really bizarre things. Really bizarre things, considering that you need a European Cup or a Champions League to have completed a treble. The fact that the record holders, and I mean record by, country miles and lanes, have never done it is slightly fascinating in many ways.
I think it might be my hot take, mate. Mbappé leads Real Madrid to their first ever treble. Don't know if it's this season, but somewhere along the line of him being there. At 25, look, he's all built up now. He's ready to go. He's got that cutting edge and killer instinct that they didn't have last season, even when they did go and win the trophies they won. He is made for this club and he's made to create history. I love Vinicius. I love Jude Bellingham, but they are no more than supporting actors now, mate. This is Mbappé time.
Wow.
It's Real Madrid time.
That's a statement. That's a hell of a statement. Right, okay. And on that, I think we probably move across the Clásico divide. Now, Barcelona won the Clásico in pre-season, keeps up their perfect record, I think, in pre-season Clásicos, at least in American Clásicos. They've won all of them on US soil. Maybe if La Liga was played in the States, as has been mooted a couple of times, Barcelona would win more things. But look, it's been a really weird window for Barcelona. It's been a really weird off-season. And there were points during this where I was sort of banging my head against a wall. And you're thinking, maybe this is the moment where Barcelona kind of work it out. And they're thinking, right, we've maybe just about started to get some money back through the door. Obviously, the stadium will open in December, January. We're not quite sure exactly when it's going to be. This is a big moment in terms of trying to turn this financial mess around. And then they go out and they're like, yeah, we're going to sign 5 players. And no, please don't do that. To quote Kelly Okekere from Block Party, we were hoping for some romance. All we found was more despair. And it really did feel like that for so many of these things. But the news that Nico Williams appears to be staying at Athletic Club is, I think, on the whole, good news for Barcelona. Not because I don't think Nico would improve this side immediately. Of course he would. I absolutely adore Nico Williams. But I think that there is going to come a point where it becomes inevitable that Nico joins Barcelona. I don't think they need to do that right now. I don't think they need that in the current financial situation they're in. And it's been interesting to see them slowly start to come out of this. And there were reports recently that they were offered N'Golo Kante, and Hansi Flick turned that down because he said he wants to invest in youth. And he wants to see La Masia's products start to work their way into the first team because there's so much talent there. Now that is exciting. And whilst Barcelona fans, and as we say this, it looks like Dani Olmo has agreed terms. He's obviously a La Masia product himself coming back to the club. It's obviously big money. If that's the one signing that they make this summer, I have some questions as to that's not why I would have invested on the pitch. But I also don't mind it in terms of the fit. And I think that if Hansi Flick is going to play a 4-2-3-1, as I think, then maybe Olmo in that 10 role could be very, very exciting for Barcelona. So if that's going to be the signing, then that's exciting. A lot of people would say, oh, Barcelona only signed 1 or 2 players, whatever that looks like. That's a tough window. Disagree. The less money Barcelona spend in this window, the higher I'll rate it for them. And I think that that's where we're at right now. And there's a point here where you have to go, what do you believe in? What do you believe this club can do in the future? And I think we've seen sparks in pre-season. Obviously, they drew 2-2 with Manchester City, won 4-1 on penalties, and then beat Real Madrid 2-1. They'll have played Milan by the time that this episode is out. So go and see how the youngsters got on there. But on the whole, I think what's been really exciting is seeing the emergence of more young talents that, may or may not make it at Barcelona, but will definitely make it. Now, Pau Victor came in from Girona. He's already basically pushed Vitor Roque back down the pecking order. Now, how they're dealing with that situation, I think, is uncomfortable. And I think that they need to work that out very quickly before something goes very sour. But Pau Victor has come in and been like, I could be the main man. And it's been really exciting to watch him kind of take that in his stride. I think we're watching Fermin Lopez have another incredible tournament, this time at the Olympics, and basically be Spain's main man as they've got to the final of that competition. But the opportunities that we've seen for someone like Noah Darvic, for Marc Bernal and Marc Casado have played as a double pivot at the bottom. I mean, the two of them look sensational. Casado in particular looks like a Kimmich clone. And both physically and in the way that he plays, it's a bit mad. But seeing them step up, seeing players like Michael Fay step up, seeing the wing backs step up, Alex Valle, we saw Martin, we saw Hector Fort, all of them, in the places I was like, well, Barcelona look light at fullback. They look, light in these certain areas. They look light in defensive midfield. And suddenly you're going, well, if Bernal and Casado can play, if they're good enough to step up and make, get minutes, and they look that in preseason, again, caveat, pinch of salt, preseason, but they look like they can make an impact. And where I was looking at this Barcelona squad and going, that's thin, that's thin, that's thin, there are players here who've made a real impact in preseason who I think should be given the opportunity to step in these roles. And whilst I had concerns, reservations, should we say, about Hansi Flick and the fit of Barcelona, his desire to bring the youth through and actually give them an opportunity to shine in the first team here could be the best thing that's happened to them in a long time. So from a period where 2 weeks ago I was very concerned for this Barcelona team, I'm suddenly starting to see some light at the end of this tunnel. And so much of it is academy graduates and how well they've performed on this preseason tour. I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I really hope that they are given that opportunity and Barcelona don't go and splurge at the end of this window. They don't need Joao Cancelo. They don't need to bring him back in. They probably don't need to bring Joao Felix back in. They need to be very sensible here. And if they can get to the end of this window without being idiots, I think that's probably the best that we can ask for.
Yeah, there's 20 minutes of La Liga there. You started by saying Atleti for the title. We just addressed their rivals. You still think they got a good shot at that?
I think they'll be in the conversation. I don't necessarily think they will win the title, but I think they will
they can
be
make
in
a
the
proper push for it.
I think they can make a go at it, and in a way that I probably we didn't really see last season.
Apologies to Girona for not including you in the running for that.
Well, we had to rule out Leipzig because I said it was going to be called European Giants. So so we've had to exclude Girona and Bologna and some other teams that I'm very excited about. I could do a whole episode on Serie A, but we are
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is the Giants show. I'm going to go on to some Italian giants now. Let's switch countries. Juventus, I will begin with, and then you can take it on from there to another Italian club. Their transfer window has been interesting so far. Obviously, they've just put about half the team up for sale at the moment. Chiesa, the headline name that is available to go because he hasn't signed a new contract. They don't want him going for a free next year. Touted around everywhere, to be honest with you. But no real takers at this stage for Chiesa, and maybe ends up finding a new home in Italy, the way things are going right now.
Back to Fiorentina. It's on.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Honestly, it's few and far between. I mean, ideally, I was speaking to someone last week. They said he wants a Champions League club and he wants 150 grand a week. There aren't really too many places for him then, is there? That's not ideal. He was even linked with Fulham and West Ham today, so he's obviously scratching around a bit at the moment. They've signed at Juventus Douglas Luiz, Kefram Turam, Juan Cabal, and Michel Di Gregorio. Got to get that right. Michel Di Gregorio. Bit of a tongue twister for me. Obviously, they're still looking to do deals for Cope Miners and Todibo as well. So at the moment, I reckon I'd give them a 7.5 out of 10, something like that. But get Cope Miners and Todibo over the line, and you're having a stormer. You're having an absolute stormer.
Last week, I would have been like, Juve are having an absolutely sensational window in terms of where they're going, what they're trying to do. Now, it's not perfect, and look, I think they've missed out on Calafiori, and that's a big loss. But generally, I was like, the business has been really good. And then they decided to be like, cool, we're having a fire sale, by the way. You can have Fede Chiesa for 10 million. And I was like, no, surely that's not a sensible way of doing business. They're like, no, Weston McKennie, we don't want him. Why on earth would you try and pay market value for a player that they're like, we actively don't want him in our squad? I just don't understand that from a business perspective whatsoever.
Yeah, in the old days in football, you used to get actual transfer lists being created by clubs of players that are available, and you don't actually see that anymore. But Juventus have decided to bring it back. It's like a computer game from like 2003 or something. But yeah, they're doing all right. It's been a steady pre-season for them. They actually had the next gen game today, which is obvious. Yeah, so it's kind of a family affair where the first team play against the unders, and they have pitch invasion, all sorts at the ends. The first team will be relieved.
Juve were going to win either way, right? So that's good.
Well, the first team will be relieved that they did win 4-0, in fact, in the end. Danilo, Ware, Yildiz and Thuram were the goal scorers. And it was the first time really that they've put together their proper team. They played Brest the other day, which was 2-2, but it was a very mishmash team really. So it was difficult to take too much from it. They've got Atletico coming up actually. So playing against the future La Liga winners will really test their credentials for the new season. Before they get going against Como at the beginning of the season. Big test, that one. But yeah, just trying to gauge what they're doing. Obviously, Thiago Motta era. Goodbye, Allegri. Douglas Luiz is really the player that I'm looking at right now, seeing as Kope Miners and Todibo aren't in the door yet. And you think, okay, well, Motta's obviously going to want to get something going through the middle of the field, and you perhaps here looking at a double pivot with Thuram.
I mean, dude, that's a really exciting double pivot. And if they stick, I mean, obviously Locatelli's in there at the moment, but if you put Kope Miners in there, that's obviously a brand new midfield, but that's a real engine room.
Mate, that's a real upgrade. And the build up to the new season is going to give us a glimpse of this new Juve. And one thing we're all hopeful for is that they're at least easier on the eye and you can watch a full 90 minutes of Juventus, because it was almost impossible last season. Genuinely, there were games I'd have to turn off. Douglas Luiz did play in the next-gen game, and so did Kefren Thuram. So they both started to get a feel today of the Allianz and what's to come, feel that new shirt on their backs. Take a little while to settle, obviously, but I think that Luiz is going to be very, very much key to the Motta system. And as the first signing of this new era, he's got to help set the tone for what's coming. I'd like to go in more into like what it will look like with Todibo and Kope Miners, and I was hoping in the last week that those deals would be over the line by now, but they're not. So I'll leave that for another day. I guess if there's someone else to get excited about, it could be Yildiz. Even tipping him to take the 10 shirt this season. I don't know that they've released their squad numbers because he wore the 15 today. I noticed he did score in that 4-0 win, and it was pretty much a belter as well. He smashed it in from the edge of the box, but he was wearing the 15. So not sure if they were their official numbers or they're just wearing them for now in pre-season. But to see Yildiz under a more forward-thinking manager is a good thing for him, for us, and for this team. Last season, the signs were there of what was possible, but obviously he just wasn't fully unlocked. So he is a player that I'm expecting to kind of explode onto the scene more fluidly, I would say. So yeah, let's see what can happen, mate. That first game against Como, potentially slippery because they've got
an interesting summer as well.
Yeah, they've got big aspirations and will be intending to kind of stamp their mark on this league as they come up, and they have some big names in the ranks. But yeah, this is an exciting season for Juve, and the fans will just hope that it gives them something to look forward to every week, because I don't think that was the case most game weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see. Well, I was going to say next gen Juventus, but that's actually a completely different team. So new Juventus, we'll call them, or Thiago Motta's era begins. Right. We're going to cross the Derby d'Italia divide after the break. We'll be looking at Inter. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Ranks FC. I've just started to build up the Serie A hype by telling you everything you needed to know so far on Juventus. And Jack, you can take us on to another Serie A giant.
Yeah, I mean, let's go to Inter. And it's been a quiet summer, is the truth of the matter, I think, at San Siro, at least the Nerazzurri half of San Siro. It's been intriguing kind of watching what they've been doing, because the most important thing that Inter did this summer was they locked down Simone Inzaghi to a new contract. And considering where he's taken this team and considering what we've seen from them in the last few years, it is kind of a case of like, can we maintain the status quo? Because Inter was so dominant last year that it basically meant that, you know, everyone else was kind of miles off the pace, to be perfectly honest with you. And no one was anywhere near where Inter were. So obviously, other teams are trying to catch up, and there's always a room for some improvement. But in the complete, almost opposite manner to what Atleti have done in the last week, Inter did all of their business really early, and they did it really sensibly as well, with a lot of free agents coming in. So the kind of top line names were Piotr Zielinski. That deal was rumored for a long, long time, moving from Napoli to Inter, and Mehdi Taremi, who's been sensational for Porto for so many years, coming in as a kind of rotating option in strike force. In terms of outs, you're looking at Cuadrado. How often did we see Cuadrado play? Not very often. Davy Klaassen, who was part of the midfield rotation, but is very much upgraded by bringing Zielinski into that spot. And Alexis, who has been replaced by Taremi. Now, different players, and I find that one slightly interesting in that Alexis felt like the rotator for Lautaro last year. And with him gone and Taremi coming in, who feels more like a kind of traditional number 9 rather than the number 10 role that Lautaro occupies, I'm intrigued to see how that would work. Now, maybe it's Marcus Thuram flipping over to the other side of this and becoming a little bit more like a stretch runner and playing off Taremi in that regard. But that's a little bit different. And they brought in a new goalkeeper as well from Genoa Martinez. So it is kind of a question of, well, where are Inter? Probably quite similar to where they were last year. Now, I think they've strengthened the depth options in this, but I don't know. At the start of the season, I expect the team to be Sommer, Bastoni, Acerbi, De Vrij, DeMarco, Dumfries, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, Barella, Lautaro, and Marcus Thuram. I expect that's how they'll line up on the opening day of the season. So there's something to be said for consistency, right? And especially when you have been so good and so dominant, that keeping this team together and allowing them to grow together feels like a really important moment. And as I say, signing Inzaghi to that new contract, making sure that the coach is, thinking forwards and looking towards building something long-term, all of that, I think, is the most important things that the Inter could have done. They've been fine in preseason. They beat Pergoletese 2-1. They beat Las Palmas 3-1. They drew last week 1-1 with Pisa. There's some interesting games coming up for Inter. And I think, you already mentioned the Chelsea game. That one feels like a kind of good test of where they're at right now. But on the whole, they've been quite an easy one to analyze, because I think that they have strengthened in terms of their rotations. And I think that will help them in terms of where they are with the Champions League. That was a little bit of a struggle last year. I think they were focused on winning that 20th league title, getting that second star on the shirt. Only the second team, obviously, to have 2 stars on their shirt. And it felt like at times the Champions League might have been open for them last year, and they lost to the Atleti side, and it all felt a bit kind of, oh, what if? I think what they've done here is they've put in some pieces to be like, okay, we can rotate a little bit more. We'll be able to bring in some talented footballers who can step up to the mark and who will be a key part of the squad. You'll be able to rotate a little bit more throughout the season without losing that quality. All of that suggests to me that Inter are doing their business sensibly. It also means that as we're coming up to this sort of end part of the transfer window, Inter are kind of open, right? And there's been a little bit of talk about Chiesa potentially ending up at Inter and being that Lautaro rotator. There was talk of a potential swap deal with Fratesi going in the other direction. He hasn't really got going. But I think there's scope here for players who were on the fringes last year to step up. Aslani's the big one for me. He feels like he's been learning how to play that Çalhanoğlu role for a couple of years now. Very, very talented footballer. And I'm excited about seeing what he can do. Jan Bissek, who hasn't had much of a run out in defence, feels like he should have grown into this team this year. Tejon Buchanan, who came in January, you're thinking, well, what happens with him? How does he fit into this side? Is he going to play as the kind of wing-back rotator on the right? That would be my assumption. But how does he fit into these things? So I think there's room for growth, but not without shaking the whole thing up. And I'm really glad that Inter have done it this way, because there was no need for revolution. All it needed was evolution. And I think they're doing it very, very sensibly.
Yeah. I'm going to take it straight onto AC Milan because I love what's going on. I love it. Now, I just don't think Inter are going to have it by any means all their own way this season, not just because the Juventus are going to be on the rise again. I reckon the red and black side of the San Siro are also going to be back in business with a new edge and verve about them. Now, look, transfer-wise, it doesn't blow me away at the moment, but equally, not too dissimilar to what you're saying about Inter. I don't think they needed anything too drastic. Centre-back Pavlovic has come in. Morata's the big one. Morata coming in is the big kind of focal point of the team that arrived from Atleti. There's going to be further additions. There's definitely going to be another midfielder coming into the mix. Yusuf Fofana is taking far too long to get over the line. I don't understand why that would take so long. He wasn't even that expensive. And now Man United are suddenly being linked to him, even though he doesn't actually fit the profile of midfielder that they're actually after.
Johnny Cardoso linked as well with Milan, which is an interesting one.
There's a few new names coming on now to the radar at Milan. Yeah, so Manu Kone mentioned as well in the last 2 days. So they'll be signing a midfielder. Look out for the profile of that person. There's this ongoing push to sign Emerson Royale from Tottenham as well. And as you're listening to this, the deadline's probably passed on Emerson Royale. Tottenham and Milan, I think, sick of the talk around this one as well. Just clear it up and get it sorted one way or the other. This player is not worth all of these column inches that are going into it. All right, just get it done or not. We're all bored of it now. But either way, that needs to be cleared up before I can properly establish what kind of transfer window rating I'll be willing to give them. But yeah, you look at what's gone on in pre-season so far. They've beaten Man City. They've beaten Real Madrid. And even though results are pretty much meaningless, they can give you confidence and a feel-good factor about what's going on. And I think it was important for this team to start that way at a time when they obviously have fresh beginnings and Fonseca is looking to start something beautiful. I'm going to be watching their game in a few hours, actually. They play Barcelona, so that's going to be an interesting watch. But generally, I think there should be a lot of positivity building as they start to look at their first game of the season against Torino. Now, why am I excited? What do I think about this team? Honestly, it's just the potential of what that attack could be capable of. Oh, it almost sends shivers down my spine, Jack. Like this team, they're magic in their toes. If you can get a proper tune out of these rotations, then it could be so good. Leao, Morata, Pulisic, Chukwueze, right? Chukwueze's starting to show his potential again in pre-season. Salamakas and Okafor have been knocking on the door as well to show what they're capable of. And there's been a lot of excitement around Morata, right? I saw Loftus-Cheek talking the other day about his talent, but also about his leadership. And that could be really crucial with him leading from the very front. Obviously, Olivier Giroud's moved on to LAFC, where interestingly enough, you were talking about Atleti earlier on and Antoine Griezmann. He's actually being looked at by LAFC as well at the moment. I'm not sure they're going to get him out right now, but there's definitely potential.
We need one more year of Grizzy doing the bits. I mean, he was so good last year, man.
It would be very strange for him to leave La Liga right now to go to MLS, but there is definitely something going on right now. And out here in California, I've seen loads written about it and tweeted about it. So let's see what happens. But yeah, last season AC Milan, it was pretty much Pulisic on one flank, Leao on the other flank, Loftus-Cheek hovering behind, usually Giroud up top. Now, you're looking at what's going to happen this season and reading about pre-season plans. It seems like Pulisic could be relaunched as more of a 10.
I was going to say Fonseca likes a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, he does. And look, that's not a million miles away from what Pioli was doing, obviously. But it's a 4-2-3-1 with a bit more life about it. And look, Pioli should be remembered for some of the good things he done at Milan as well. But obviously, it ran out of batteries, the operation that he had running. But the Fonseca situation with him coming in and playing the same formation, we're just going to see him insert new batteries, slightly change the rotation and give him a bit more identity. If he can focus on getting the full potential out of Leao Morata, that's a forward duo that barely anyone else in Europe can match. Like, at their best, those two, the explosiveness of Leao and the goal-scoring prowess of Morata, that's really, really difficult to match. I've got big, big hopes for what AC Milan are capable of in this coming season. Now, look, I don't really have an Italian team. I mean, we've obviously joked for years over on Patreon that I'm a Juve fan, and I'm part of the setup over there. I'm not, despite all of that. If there's a team in Italy that always managed to capture my footballing emotions, it's AC Milan. That season when they went and won the league, I loved it. I loved it when they were able to put everything together and go and do that. And I think now, when you also look a bit backwards, Benacer's looking in good shape. There's strong talk about what we can expect from Yunus Musa as a central player. Reinders is in there. You've still got Teo Hernandez at left back, a centre-back duo of Tior and Tomori. Maignan still in goal. Mate, I would be really optimistic as an AC Milan fan right now, which I'm fast becoming, obviously, about what you can expect from this side. And if I was to pop onto DH Gate right now and order a shirt, I think I'm getting an AC Milan one.
Look, I mean, Fonseca's Lille sprung out of the blocks last year, right? They really did. They really did start fast. And although they stumbled a little bit over the finish line, I thought it was generally a pretty successful season from a Lille perspective, obviously getting them back in to the Champions League qualifiers. But getting him into that conversation again is a big one. And I thought that over the course of the season, we saw some really nice stuff. I'm excited to see what he can do with his Milan side, but there are reservations. Obviously, his last experience in Italy didn't completely go to plan with Roma, so it's not done and dusted. It's not cut and dry that he's going to be a success, but I think there's plenty of reasons for optimism. It's funny, isn't it? Like a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, if you would have said that one of Teo or Rafa Leao would have moved from Milan by now.
You would, yeah.
But they're still there. They're still pretty much, at the heart of this project. And there's now something very exciting about watching them get another go under a manager who, hopefully will allow them that freedom to get on and attack. And I think it's going to be exciting to see how Milan deal with this season. Before we go to Germany, which is our next destination, our next full destination, if you will, I do want to do a quick stop off in France because I would like to talk briefly about Paris Saint-Germain. Now, it hasn't been all that busy at PSG, which is a bit of a funny one because Kylian Mbappé left. He wasn't the only one to leave. Mbappé left. Two goalkeepers left in the form of Sergio Rico and Keylor Navas. Renato Sanchez has just gone on loan to Benfica. We think that Carlos Soler and Manuel Ugarte might well be on the way out as well. Soler potentially going to Real Sociedad as a Mikel Merino replacement. Ugarte was linked with Manchester United, but they don't seem to be that fussed that United have pulled out of, or seemingly pulled out of said deal because there seems to be other suitors for Manuel Ugarte. They've not been that busy coming in. They've brought a goalkeeper in Safanov, who's a highly rated young goalkeeper, but they've brought João Neves from Benfica, and that's why Sanchez has gone the other way. This could be defining. And I like that PSG haven't gone absolutely to town this summer. I like that they're starting to build something that feels like more of a sustainable project. But what does Mbappe's departure mean? Well, there was talk that they were going to go in and try and get Rafa Leao out of Milan. That never really materialized. Instead, it looks like Bradley Barcola is going to get that opportunity to shine on that left-hand side. Instead, we're going, have they bought a big striker? No. Now, yes, they could go back in for Osimhen, and that one looks like it might have legs still. But as of now, Ramos and Kolo Muani seem to be rotating in that spot, and they're going to get the opportunities to make that number 9 spot their own. Dembele will stay on the right-hand side, you'd imagine. But it's this midfield, man. This midfield, at one point, if they can field a midfield that is Vitinha, Joao Neves, and Warren Zaire-Emery, we're talking about the best, or at least up there with Madrid's young midfield in Europe.
Yeah,
Joao Neves is a unicorn, man. He's incredible. And I think that whilst I've spoken about him pretty glowingly, I think this is a really good fit for him. And I think that partnership with Vitinha, and there was some really interesting stuff on Twitter the other day about how their maps overlap. Between the two of them, they basically do everything apart from aerial duels. And I think that's maybe doing a little bit of a disservice to Joao Neves. He is diminutive, but he's got such a leap on him that he wins quite a lot of aerial duels anyway. So kind of looking at what they do, I mean, Joao Neves mops up. He's a brilliant interceptor of the ball. He breaks up play, buzzes around like a dynamo off the ball. On the ball, he's brilliant at moving through the thirds. He's brilliant at skipping away from tackles. He's got that ability to change teams and direction in a single stroke. Whereas Vitinha is more of the controller. And I think that when you're kind of looking at them together, you're going, well, who plays number 6? I think it's different depending on if you've got the ball or if you don't. Because when you've got it, you give it to Vitinha deep and you let him dictate. And when you don't, you let Joao Neves bomb around and break things up and be that guy. And then as alongside them, you've got Zaire-Emery, who's been so wonderful as a kind of all-round 8 for the last couple of seasons that people are starting to look at him as the poster boy of this project. And that's a really exciting place to be. I think PSG will do a little bit more business. I don't think they're finished in the market by any stretch of the imagination. When you look at this squad and you look at the talent it has, I think they could maybe do with a little bit of help at centre-back. That's where I kind of see them a little bit light. But on the whole, you know, you're talking about those 3 in midfield with Fabian Ruiz still in there, with Danilo Pereira still in there, with Gabriel Moscardo, who's another young talent from Brazil who's come in there and not necessarily had that time to shine yet, but very, very highly rated. You're talking about, that front 3 of Barca, Ramos and Dembele, but Kolo Muani, Kang In Lee and Marco Asensio to provide a little bit of that experience in there as well. I think they'll bring one more in, but it's a really nicely balanced side. And I think that with Luis Enrique in there, and Joao Neves now in the picture, and maybe the shadow of Mbappé lifted from the rest of this team. That's not to suggest that he's a bad player or that he was holding them back, because I think that sometimes these things can be overplayed. But I think that considering the drama that has surrounded Kylian Mbappé and his potential exit from PSG for so long, we're now talking about a period where they will have that opportunity to just take it upon themselves, for other people to step up, for the limelight to be shared out a little bit more. And perhaps the balance of this team looks a little bit better because of it. So yes, they might sign a Victor Osimhen, and I think that would be fun. But on the whole, where PSG are right now, I'm really excited. The problem is that we can't really see what they're doing because they haven't played a preseason game yet. They start their preseason tomorrow. So we'll be keeping an eye on PSG, but the business and the fact that this side is starting to lean on things in a more sensible manner, I'm really excited by.
Yeah, Joao Neves, honestly, I think that sounds like a bargain, to be honest.
Absolutely. I think we're talking about a player who in 2 years' time is going to be recognised as one of the best midfielders in the world, like bar none.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's worth watching PSG alone just to watch how he integrates in that team and also how he transforms them, because it'll be a different side from the one that we saw under Mbappe, obviously, and it'll be going through him. Right, I'll
completely... got a new sporting director now that Kylian Mbappe's left. New chairman.
Yeah. I know. Well, he's got his own business running now, hasn't he? He's got his own team as well.
He's bought Cannes, yeah. He's bought Cannes.
Yeah. He signed someone today. Was it Jan and Villa?
Here he goes, the main man in business.
There we go. Right, I'm going to take us over to Germany, and I'm going to talk about Bayern Munich. This might be a 9 out of 10 transfer window, you know. Michael Olise.
Yeah.
Joao Palhinha.
Good player.
Hiroki Ito.
Yeah,
I like all of them. Yeah, I mean, that's not it. That's not their only transfers, but just those 3 alone, I think, lifts them to potentially, well, definitely one of the best, most significant transfer windows in terms of elevating an elite team. They've spent over £100 million in this window, and that's probably because they're trying to claw the title back off Bayer Leverkusen, who did not know it was illegal to stop Bayern Munich from winning the league. They'd won it 11 years in a row, and they want it back. Mate, this team, I don't see how they don't win it. I saw a lineup on the Bundesliga website, and they set out basically what the potential team will be like under Vincent Kompany next season. So obviously, yeah, they've got a change in the dugout as well. And they set it out with Neuer in goal, Alphonso Davies at left back, then you've got Ito and Kim as the centre-back pairing, and Stanisic at right back. Then the midfield duo in the centre, Palhinha and Kimmich. And then they set it up as a 4-4-2, but the two wide midfielders, Musiala and Elise, and then they've got Sané and Kane as the two forwards. So then I started looking into the pre-season. A couple of local games, like they play in Germany, where one of them Bayern won 14-1. I'm not going to bother going into those.
It's Nestor Irankunda season, mate. It's time.
Yeah, exactly.
Big man from Australia is stepping up. It's all very exciting.
But they beat Tottenham 2-1 the other day and were pretty dominant in that game. But that lineup that I've just read out, it wasn't that. This was a different lineup and included Muller, Gnabry, Tell, Pavlovic, Bowie, Guerrero. So, and Brian Zaragoza, he played. He caused Tottenham some problems.
He's not going to be there. He's going to be on somewhere.
But he caused Tottenham problems.
He's a really good footballer.
Mate, and I'm like, this is unthinkable, isn't it, that they don't win the league? I mean, Leipzig, Leverkusen and Dortmund are going to have to maintain extremely high standards if they want to stop this lot. I think the fact that they're looking to make up for a trophyless season adds, new fire to them. They've got to go and do it. Kane's got to win a trophy. He's got to. Palhinha's like a plug for that midfield. It's a signing that is fail-proof. There you go. It's fail-proof.
This is the one that couldn't fail.
It really is, mate. Then you had the guile of Michael Elise. I really didn't think he was going to go and move abroad, but here he is. Already you had a potent attack there at Bayern. And maybe when I had, those other names that I mentioned played in the Spurs game, Muller and Gnabry and Tell and the like, maybe the biggest problem is actually keeping all those guys happy and giving everybody enough minutes.
Exactly what I was about to say. I was like, is this squad too big? Is there enough
the squad
minutes?
Might be too good. that genuinely might be Kompany's biggest problem in the months that are to follow as things get underway. But
there's 44 players in the current squad, in the current first team squad at Bayern. That's obviously some of them are youngsters, etc., fine. But let's say 35 of them aren't. That's too many people. You need to.
Yeah, you only need 11. They say for a football team. So they've got,
I think you probably need 25. But
they've built an NFL squad. They've built an NFL squad for the Bundesliga, basically. The hot topic will be Kane. I mean, he got the Golden Boot last season for 36 league goals and had to carry this team on his back at times with those goals. But he was able to fire in a season when the team was misfiring. Now, they have a bit more competition in attack, as we just talked about there. So there'll be more potential to make chances for Kane. But he wasn't sharp at the Euros. I was going to say he wasn't good at the Euros then, and I stopped myself. I'm going to say he wasn't sharp at the Euros. So is he definitely going to reproduce those numbers? I think he has to if they're going to fulfill their potential with this team.
Well, Matthias Tell's there and he's waiting and he just feels so ready, doesn't he, already? So I'm not hugely worried, even if Kane carries that Euros form into this season. Matthias Tell is, I think, just literally set. I think he's set to go. I think he's set to explode as well.
Well, Tell got 9 goals last season, and that was at a rate of 1 every 130 minutes because of game time. So when you look at, there's no doubt the players around Kane need to step up their output next season. In all competitions, Kane got 44 goals, right? Next behind him was Musiala on 12. So that's a huge drop-off. And it's fine because Kane's scoring 44. But what if Kane doesn't score 44?
Well, he scores 28, Still good season.
Sané got 10. I say Tell got 9. But that's fine because of his age and the stage of his career he was at last season. And actually his goals per minute played isn't actually that bad at all. So you're right. You can rely on
very good for what it's
so,
worth.
yeah. Mate, don't build him up too much. But yeah, there's the only potential problem is that there is a huge gap between Kane and everybody else. But if he is fit and on form and fulfilling his role, this is all probably fine. But what if Kane does get injured, which there's definitely a potential for in the coming season? Can those players make up for it? They probably can, because as you were saying before, like maybe they've got such a depth of ability that they are ready for any scenario. They should be, blimey. But that's probably their biggest question mark now is, can Kane keep it up? And can Company in this first season of elite management satisfy everybody? The Company is very well talked of. There's big hopes for what he's capable of in his coaching career. And this is it. This is the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's it. I think they need to thin this squad out. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So it just feels like we're at that point where they need to just move a couple of players out on loan or move a couple out of the squad. There's too many midfielders in here for my money at the moment, especially with Polina going in and, you assume becoming a mainstay. If Kimmich is going to play in centre midfield, then that leaves Kimmich, Goretzka, Polina in there. We've seen Rafael Guerreiro playing there, although I assume he'll play at left back. But then Konrad Laimer as well is going to be looking for minutes in there. Pavlovic, who has come through and become a bit of a superstar already. Musiala, although plays further forward. I think there's a lot, that's a lot of bodies. And Eric Dyer's played at centre defensive midfield at times as well. So they do need to find some solutions, I think, in terms of moving a couple of people around. Like you say, with that wing core, how do you keep a Gnabry, Sane, Musiala, Coman, and Michael Elise happy? Can you give them all enough minutes to keep them all happy? I would say no, considering where they are right now. But let's see what happens with the rest of that. And let's take it over to Borussia Dortmund to finish us off on this bit. They've had another strange summer and another rookie manager coming in Nuri Sahin here, who's taken over from Edin Terzic, my football doppelganger. Sad to see him leave. They've had a strange summer. Obviously, Marco Reus departed, and then Mats Hummels departed. Jadon Sancho's loan ended. Ian Martin's loan ended. Niklas Füllkrug this week departed for West Ham. They also have let Mateo Moret go and Marius Wolf. So there's a lot of experience, is probably what I would say, leaving this camp. In Cummings, they've brought in Valdemar Anton, who was Hiroki Ito's partner at Stuttgart and was very, very good last season. They were both magnificent, to be perfectly honest with you, and I think that's a sensible signing. They've brought in Pascal Gross from Brighton, who's been exceptional and consistent for a number of years. They've brought in Jan Kauto, who looks excellent and lots of fun, and I think that opportunity for him to shine after sort of sitting there for a while. He had a great year on loan at Girona last year, but it didn't feel like that opportunity was forthcoming at Man City. So this is a good opportunity for him, I think. And then Jurassi's coming up top. Now, obviously, he scored a lot of goals last year, and there were some concerns about the medical with this one, but it has finally gone through. And the latest link is after Füllkrug's exit that they are looking at Max Bayer from Hoffenheim, who is someone that I rate really highly, who had a very, very good campaign last year, good enough to force himself into the thinking for Germany's Euro squad. He didn't get many minutes, but he obviously had an important impact and started his international career really, really hot. So that would be an interesting signing. I'm a little bit wary of where they are in terms of midfield, and their pre-season stuff has been odd. So they drew 1-1 with Erzgebirge, who are like a little local side, as you say. While Bayern were winning 14-0, Dortmund were drawing 1-1. Then they lost 4-0 to Pathum United, who are a Thai side. And that one really set the alarm bells ringing. There was a lot of stuff of this on social media. They then went out to Japan and they won against Cerezo Osaka 3-2. And as we're recording this, about an hour ago, they drew 2-2 with Villarreal in a strange game that wasn't 90 minutes, but 120, and actually had 4 quarters rather than 2 halves. So I think it's just for fitness and pre-season. It means you can change. It just means you can change it up, and I think it was rolling subs, etc., etc. But it was interesting to watch. They scored a very late equaliser through Marcel Sabitzer, but I think that gave us a bit more of a sense of what Dortmund are going to be about. Now, Sahin's management style, we're not sure about because we've never really seen him execute anything. At least with someone like Kompany, you can kind of revert back to what we saw at Anderlecht. We can see a little bit of what Burnley were like in the Championship to know what he's like with a more dominant side. With Sahin, it all feels very fresh and very new. Now, he's someone that obviously knows the club very well. He's presiding over a period of immense change. The idea that Hummels and Royce won't be there next year means that there is a big leadership gap for people to step up into. But on the whole, you're looking at some really talented footballers. And whilst there isn't too much change in the starting lineup from where they were last year, I do think that, Anton adds real defensive depth. I think Girassi is going to be very exciting to watch in this Dortmund side if they do attack with pace, which we're assuming with them. And Pascal Gross comes in here and adds some real, I think, creativity, but also consistency to this midfield, which is something that they were really lacking last season. Couto, I'm not sure about yet in terms of starting. He's got a good fight on his hands against Julian Ryerson, who I think is a really good player. But it's one of those where you're going, okay, the depth options now seem to be the same kind of level. And it's a bit like when I was talking about Inter, right? What you want is when they have to rotate, when they're playing across different competitions, that the drop-off from Dortmund starters to the players coming in to replace them is reduced. And I think that that's what they've done so far in this window. I still think they're a little bit light in the wide areas. Adeyemi and Marlon, there was a big question mark over whether Adeyemi would stay. He's already spoken about the fact that now that he never really wanted to go anywhere. Jamie Bino-Gittens looks set for another big season as well, but I think they could do with one more. Maybe that is Max Bayer. Maybe he comes out there and plays a little bit wider than what he was doing for Hoffenheim. It's a different system. But overall, I think that Dortmund is starting to get their house in order. Now, we're not 100% sure how that house is going to look, but the signings seem to be quite sensible. There seems to be this bit of a in-house crisis going on at the moment with Sven Mislintat and Nuri Sahin at each other's throats. So I imagine there might be changes in the boardroom. There's apparently over a deal for Ryan Cherki, who's been in the France Olympic squad. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that one plays out now. But on the whole, I think that from a pretty shaky start, Borussia Dortmund is starting to show that they are moving in the right direction, and that's got to be something to hang on to. Do I think they're going to be vastly improved on last year? Do I think they're suddenly going to be back in the top two? No. But I think that this is a squad that can continue to compete for Champions League football. Obviously, they got to the final of that competition last year and took everyone by surprise. I can't see a repeat of that either. But I think that Borussia Dortmund feel like they're on slightly more stable ground and have replaced elderly statesmen in this team with younger players who can have that space to grow. Long term, I think things look relatively bright for Dortmund.
Yeah, there's plenty there to analyse, but you're right in terms of not really being able to take much actual outcome or have an answer to anything as to what we could expect.
Good window, questionable pre-season, not sure what it's going to look like on the first day.
Yeah, hope, not expectation, I guess, is what Dortmund fans will have. But that's often the way, isn't it, mate? That's the Dortmund way.
That is the Dortmund way. All right, cool. Well, that takes us to the end of the 9 European giants that we were covering today.
Sorry if we left out your giant.
Yeah, well, we had to. Sorry, we left out your giant. We had to call the line somewhere. That's where we decided it was. But after the break, Dean is going to be giving us the latest episode of his American life. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the third and final part of Ranks FC. And DJ, over to you for Dean's American Life.
Yeah, I thought I'd actually just give you a bit of an evaluation, really, of my first soccer match here in California. So after we recorded last week, off I went on the Wednesday to Snapdragon Stadium, which is really close to where I live. Taylor dropped me and Dylan down there. It was a 7-minute drive, I think it was. So literally, my local club
on your doorstep.
When San Diego FC begins in February in MLS, quite literally, they will be my local club. So that's fun. But I tell you what, Jack, I'm gonna need some wisdom from the rank squad.
Guru wisdom, guru wisdom, guru wisdom.
The squad have really delivered since I've landed in San Diego. I've had so many DMs from people helping me, or at least offering help with setting up bank accounts, setting up phone contracts, giving me advice on places to go to eat around San Diego, all these different things. Like, honestly, thank you to everyone that's been in touch. It's It's really been good. One, to know that people are actually listening to this podcast, but two, to know that you guys care and we care about you too. So thank you for that. But I am going to need some settling into soccer culture. I went to Man United against Real Betis. Obviously, it's a pre-season friendly. Like, I'm not expecting the world. But it's very weird. I went there a bit early because I heard there was like a bit of a fan fest. It was good. I had a chat with Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic, the Man United correspondent, guy I used to work with when I was on the beat on the Nationals. So it was good to bump into Laurie and had a chat with him. He didn't know I was living out here either, so that was interesting. And then
not a member of the rank squad.
No, he's got his own podcast and own life to lead. I think he's just a baby as well, not long ago. Andy Mitten, who most people will be aware of, especially if they support Man United, and works for The Athletic too. I watched him do a little on-stager with Brian Robson. Wes Brown was there. Tried to get Dylan to have a picture of Wes Brown. He wasn't interested in that.
We've interviewed Brian Robson before.
We have. That was a weird one, wasn't it? He was in. I have to say, Brian Robson's interview here was much better than the one we got.
Good.
That might be one of the worst interviews I've ever done. But Dylan did a little challenge outside and scored a goal and did a little celebration, which made everybody laugh. He pretended he was Ronaldo with his Rashford shirt on. He met Fred the Red, and that was all fine. It was all fine. It was very much as you would expect in America.
That's
like
very
lots of stalls. It was very pre-season and very America, as you'd expect. They're trying to get fans involved in the club. And there was a little merchandise stall with overpriced T-shirts and stuff. And Man United tour T-shirt was $40. I was like, what?
Wow.
That's wild. Like, who is buying that? Lo and behold, everyone. Not me. Anyway, we get inside the stadium. And what I found most bizarre about it, so the stadium holds 35,000 and allegedly there was 26,000 there. The stadium looks half empty to me for most of the night. But that might be because everybody just walks around eating and drinking.
Yeah, I mean, this is very baseball culture, isn't it?
What's everyone doing? The game is on. This is not baseball. This is football. You need to actually sit and watch the two halves of football. Okay, miss 5 minutes here or there, fine. I do that. But you're just looking around. And everywhere you look around the outskirts and like around the concourse, just wandering around, eating nachos, drinking beer. And those things are fine, but like, you've paid a lot of money to be here.
Your beer to the seat?
Of course you can.
Oh.
Yeah. It's $60 starting price a ticket and you're not watching the game. What are you doing? Like, I couldn't get my head around it. And even when I'm in the stands, oh, mate, some of the conversations I could hear going on around me. Someone said, is that the person behind me, right? Just before kickoff, said, oh, look, Rashford is playing. He said, no, that's not Rashford. Rashford plays for Real Madrid. I was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Dylan was like, I hear some of these conversations at Fulham.
Dylan's like, did you hear that, Dad? They think Rashford plays for Real Madrid. Just ignore it, mate. You're going to hear a lot of nonsense rankings tonight in this stadium. There was not much cheering going on. At times there wasn't a lot of watching going on. I found it very difficult to sit there and just enjoy the game for the game. Now, look, it's pre-season, so I don't love watching pre-season games anyway. I watched the first half because you do learn a bit in the first half about patterns of play and individuals and stuff. But in general, I hope this is not what it's going to be like watching football in stadiums, and it's particularly at San Diego. I thought the turnout was disappointing. Man United went to South Carolina the other day and played in front of a huge crowd. I was disappointed they didn't sell out for a stadium that's not even that big. It's Man United at the end of the day. They were out here last year and played Wrexham, to be fair, and put out the kids, and I think maybe that put people off. But
yeah,
San Diego FC has to be a good experience. Please be a good experience. It's actually, I assumed I'd get a season ticket for me and Dill. And after that, I'm like, I'm holding off on that.
Mate, get a wave season ticket. That's what I do. Any excuse to see Naomi Goma play. She is unbelievable. She is absolutely ridiculous. Watching her again today at the Olympics. What a footballer.
I can get into a wave game for about $18 as and when.
Mate, there's a lot of real talent in that Wave.
Yeah,
side.
I'm definitely going to go to Wave games.
Really
I've been looking at it.
You can go see Kyra Carusa, one of
I will
the
definitely
few
go to a
Republic
Wave
of
game.
Ireland players playing in the States. But look, it's a really good series. Delphine Cascarino's just signed as well. Really exciting times for the Wave. They look on fine form. So yeah.
Well, I'll look into that for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Hit me up in the DMs. Give me some wisdom as to what I can expect when this team gets up and running, and whether I've got to accept this culture of everybody walking around eating and drinking throughout every match I go to, or whether it was just for a one-off for this pre-season game, because it was a bit mind-blowing how the stadium was empty for half the match, despite the fact they'd allegedly sold out 3/4 of it.
Who knows? Who knows, mate? But
we'll find out.
We will find out. And right, and on that bombshell, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much, all the way from San Diego, to Mr. Dean Jones.
Cheers, mate.
I've been Jack Collins. This has been Ranks FC, looking at some European giants ahead of the new season. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll be back very shortly, gang. Take it easy. Peace. Final seconds of the game. A chance to score, and the chance has gone begging. If your business's commerce platform keeps missing the target on golden opportunities, get the MVP you deserve. Get Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool that you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. So whether you're selling signed football boots from Shopify's in-person POS system, or you're vending vintage shirts on Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform, you are covered. And once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. What I love about Shopify is how, no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is truly a global force, powering Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across over 170 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ranks, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ranks to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/ranks.